We'll call the meeting to order. I'll call for our adopted agenda. Becca, all in favor? Carried. Any disclosure of interest for the meeting? Seeing none. Fine. And then looking at the minutes, I haven't had a chance to look at them, but so I'll call for motion. Rob and then Rebecca. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay. All in favor of accepting minutes? Carried. Okay. The staff reports. So item A2466 on Laura to report.
Would you like to get a mover in a second?
Sorry.
Put it that the motion that's in the report is that it would be received.
Okay, so motion to receive Rob or Bob. Rob.
I don't know. I've been on and off.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. All in favor? Any discussion on that?
I didn't have anything to add.
Great job.
Did a great job.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I echoed those comments at the
Yeah.
council last week too, so.
Just be changing the venue. I know.
Change the
I know it's
venue?
really good.
Breakfast?
Yeah.
I think breakfast was good. We need to work a little bit on getting,
Numbers.
turnout.
Yeah. Appreciate that. I know my nephew said he really enjoyed the comments he had afterwards too from people that were there, heard his speech. So my nephew was the speaker.
He was fantastic.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, it really was.
He knows stuff.
Yeah, very obviously. So,
So, okay. So
Chair, sorry, if I could only just make a comment,
Sure.
just to bring your attention under the financial implications, just when you go to discuss the budget to consider.
All in favor of business?
Just a question
Sure.
through you, Chair, to staff.
Yep.
You want me to bring up my question about the if the business that was nominated does not meet criteria, my comment is, why would they receive a certificate if they don't meet the criteria?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Smith. I think historically, the reason why it's been done that way is number one, we're pulling teeth, getting the public to put through nominations. And because when you say not meeting the criteria, if they're not in good standing, there was a lot of debate in the past. There was committee members that didn't like the fact that they couldn't choose a winner that wasn't in good standing. So it's kind of the handoff that they still get the recognition that the public views them as a business that is deserving of the nomination, but we don't publicize that this business isn't
In good standing.
in good standing, because as you're aware that I will come to you guys and say, you cannot select them because they're not in good standing, but because of it being personal information, I never divulge. So it's kind of opening a double-edged sword that if we don't accept the nominations and people are going to say, well, I nominated, why wasn't it part of the selection process? And it's just going to snowball from there, in my opinion, and in former staff opinion.
Bob?
Thank you, to you, Chair, to Laura. Can we just, like, we're in an open forum here. Can we talk about this in a future meeting? Like, I think we've resolved this. Is that okay by you?
But that's fine.
Yeah, but I think, like, I didn't really know what happened last meeting, why they weren't, and we just, so I'd like to know further, and anyway, just, I don't know if that's warranted of a closed meeting or not. I guess if we're just talking about policy and not specifics, then we should do it in the open, but
I could quickly just state, generally speaking, not to anything to do with this year's or previous years. When we're talking about good standing, it's not being in arrears, not having outstanding, whether it's fire or work orders, zoning compliance, just that's the sort of thing we look at.
So back taxes being good standing, right? Okay, okay,
And as a
thank you. That,
general rule, that if we're in this year, I'll use this year as an example, not that it applied to any of the
yeah, fair
nominees.
enough.
If they have still some of 2024 still owing when I look, I will consider that to be in compliance because the year isn't up.
Correct,
But if there's more
previous.
previous years, then I would come and say, you cannot select business A because they're not in compliance, but I never divulge to you which
Why?
category, but those are the kind of things that staff are looking at.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Or just a follow-up question from that, if it is, if the reason that they're maybe not in compliance is because of a township, or municipal, inability to be able to send out a tax invoice, for instance. Like I know when I built my house, we actually did not get the tax bill for almost 2 years after we built. So we would have been in non-compliance those first 2 years. But township, so.
In response to you, Chair, not from the finance department, but I think what you're referring to is that when you have a vacant property and then you build on it, there is a delay with getting the assessment from MPAC. When the township receives that assessment, then they send out what is referred to, I believe previously anyways, what's called a supplementary bill.
Mhm.
So technically, you're in compliance because you're being billed at a vacant property, and as long as you're keeping up with your taxes.
Sure, okay.
It's not until that supplementary would be issued and the due date comes and goes that you would be considered being in arrears.
Yeah.
And you're right, it can take several years.
Okay, okay, appreciate that.
No problem.
Thanks, Ryan. Okay, so, on to item 5.2, year-to-date budget, to actual for economic development. Motion to accept the report. Bob. Laura?
Well, the Director of Finance provided me with this. They have started the process of working on the 2025 budget. So if you have any specific questions to any of the lines, I probably more than likely will not have a direct answer for you, but I'm more than happy to go back to staff, the director, to get your answers. The other thing is, it was provided in the hopes that you would look at it, because if you have any recommendations you would like to make in regards to what you have and don't have for a budget, now would be the time to bring it forward.
I have one comment. I mean, the obvious answer to me is that we're really tight on our business of the year budget. We went slightly over with a small number of attendees in place, and if there's room to have a bit more wiggle room there, so we don't get caught over budget on that. But that's a relatively minor change from what I see from this budget as a whole. It looks like we're in pretty good shape. Are we aware of any substantial spendings that are still to come that aren't reflected on this?
No, we're just over $50 over budget for the business of the year. Under, which number did it go to? Sorry, the conferences. I believe that's fairly up to date because the last conference that was attended would have been back in September. So that should be reflected because I was on top of getting them in. I did put the request in for the summit that you and I will be attending. So that would be like another $100. But other than that, I'm not aware of anything. Potentially, I don't know if we have a separate line for it or not, but the mileage, which would go under conferences, because that typically is when for the travel. But it's only to Kempville, so that would be fairly minor.
So when Rebecca made the comment that it looks like we're in fairly good shape, I agree. They have 2 months to go,
Mhm.
so there'll be things added. I guess that was your question, Rebecca, but you don't foresee us spending like, we're looking at the totals, we're going to be significantly under budget. Right now,
Well, you're under budget right now, 19.
we're under budget by 19,414. We have, like you said, the business of the year, that's $50 a job ad. But it looks like we're in good shape. The notable changes, and I'm not sure what it was in 2023, doesn't matter, but it was 38,000, and this year it's only 8,000 under subcontracts. So that's, our variance is 32,000 and 30,000 of it is in that one category
Now, I
versus last year, not versus budget, sorry.
Yeah, Chair, through you, I'm not sure if specifically, like, for instance, grass cutting at the business park off of 29, if that would go into the subcontracts or not. I do know that the grass cutting expenses, oh, no, I see it's down there farther. It's significantly higher this year.
And anyway, sorry, but, through you, Chair, the only other thing I would recommend is asking the corridor. I know that last year was kind of at the 11th hour where they put in and it's a per capita allotment. And I don't think there's been any changes this year. Last year was because one of the groups dropped out, so they kind of revisited. Yes. But I think that when we're doing budgeting, since that's more than half of this budget, would it be okay to reach out to Charlie and ask him if there was any, I don't know, that's asking for an answer we don't want to get. But.
So through you, Chair, are you providing direction then to staff to contact the corridor to request
If there's an increase.
if there's an increase? Okay.
I can, Chair, the corridor hasn't had an increase in the per capita since it began, and last year was the first time they increased it.
That's great.
It was an extra dollar per capita. It is the mayors that decide whether or not they're going to. I mean, Charlie can make the recommendation, but ultimately it'll be the mayors that are the board that will make
Right.
the decision as to whether or not they're going to increase it or not. So the mayor does have a direct.
Yeah, I missed the last meeting, Rob. The last corridor meeting, I don't know if there's any discussion. Okay.
I just, another comment on that is just, because we want to be informed as soon as we possibly can. So
Yes.
Yeah, and I believe the mayors made that comment last year when that and say, hey, if we're gonna do this, let's do it in October.
During the budget process.
Yeah,
Okay.
so maybe you CC the mayor on.
Okay.
So is there a recommendation that wants to be made for any request for additional?
I think we would be something what we're asking for is notification of any changes to the budget as soon as possible. I don't think we can do much different than that.
In regards to the corridor, I'm speaking about this because
Oh.
Rebecca had mentioned the line item for the business of the year. So I'm asking the committee if there is a motion to make a recommendation to council for an increase or not.
I feel like, I mean, I know we didn't have any funds that, we were talking about decorations and flowers and things and we cut that out. And it was all right because the golf course had that beautiful window out. So it was almost like the fall background became our decorations and things. But I wouldn't want to say I'm disappointed in any way with the event. I would just think it might be better if we had a slight cushion. Even if we just added an extra $500 to that for next year so that we didn't, start making decisions that, we can't put flowers out unless you bring your pumpkin from home and.
Well, we also want to get more people.
And yeah,
Well, it's your 40th year, right? Next
Pardon
year.
me?
Next year is the 40th.
It's the 30th.
30.
This
30th.
year was the 20, so yeah, that was the other thing.
30th.
It's gonna be, it's a big year, so.
It should be a big year,
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
So it'd be nice to get a list of all the businesses that have been in business for 30 years or more.
It's something we can talk about.
Yep.
but I think
And a later,
right
Yeah,
now we
but
have a
I
motion.
would second the motion for $500.
Okay.
so that's a motion
Motion.
from Rebecca, seconded by Rob. For a recommendation of an increase of $500.
Yes. All in favor? Carried. So, on to,
So it will just, I guess. Like some of these items, I have no idea what they are. We are significantly under budget. And I guess I'm wondering, would the recommendation be to council to reduce budget to 2024 actuals or to leave the budget the same? You know, because I don't know, like, for instance, economic development promotion. We spent $1,500 of 6,000.
I think, from my point of view, I would keep that budget and have us think of better ways to spend it. So we had had a meeting with Ann Weir, for example, where she was suggesting we could have done an event with businesses in the business park or something, and that flexibility there. I don't know. I'm not sure what the pressure is on our budget, but if there's no pressure for us to give money back, I'd rather us keep it and then think of better ways that we can make use of the funds that we have allocated to us.
Okay, and I would agree with that. And or take the $500 out of that to put it into,
Yeah.
so that the budget ends up being the same.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Just trying not to increase budget spending. We really don't need it. Like, we need it in certain areas. There's no doubt that the 500 is needed for the business. Just if we're under by $19,400, I think we should be able to find the 500 out of one of the other categories is all I'm asking to do.
I agree.
So, but I don't know why I'm saying taking out a promotion. I'm just arbitrarily picking one that appears.
That makes sense though, right? Our business of the year
Is kind of
event is
promotion.
economic development promotion. So
Is that okay?
So
The amendment to the first motion
do you
was,
want to amend the recommendation, or do you want to direct staff that if it comes back that when they're crunching the numbers that you ask to take it from one to the other?
it feels like 6 of one and half dozen of the other.
I'm just asking, I don't want to make that call.
yeah,
I would say leave the budget as it is, and if we find that we're going to be over, we'll make those adjustments.
Can I just make a comment, Chair, through you? And Bob, you made a comment that a lot of these line items, you don't know what they are. So just for the sake of saving time, if there's any line items that any of the committee members would like clarification on what they are, if you could just email them to me, and then I can bring that back to let you know what they are. Or what's involved in the line item, what counts under it. Because I won't be able to answer you right now, but I have no problem
and I was
going to the, to the
and-
Director of Finance just to clarify to you.
yeah, that was probably,
Okay,
thank you, I'll do that.
So going back to the comment about increasing the business of the year, line item, $500. And we talked about taking $500 out of the line item of economic development promotion. That way, you're not going to be increasing or decreasing the budget as presented. And that way I leave it as is. So back to Bob's motion is that I would just throw it on the floor and you amend it to say that you're taking $500 promotions, put it into the line item for the business of the year. Reason being is that when it comes back and it says we're over budget again for business of the year, You know, someone's gonna say, where are you gonna take that money from? All I'm saying is that, yeah, we have a surplus right now in the promotion. Let's take the 500 out of that budget line item, put it in the business of the year. And make everything stay the same, like, the bottom line is.
Bottom line's the same.
Hearing you say that, I would agree.
Yeah.
If we could amend the original
So
motion.
Rob, you're moving
Yeah.
and Bob, you're seconding.
Yes, that's great.
All in favor? Carried.
Okay.
So we want to do line item 5.3, so the township owned property. So. Guess we'll start the discussion then. The information that has been provided to us, I know I hadn't received some of it until today. I'm sure everybody was not by everybody else. I got it. Okay. So Laura, thank you for providing that information from the planner itself to us last week. So that's good. So any questions on that? I have in here the requested information.
Do we need a motion to accept this?
It wasn't done as a report, so
Okay.
it's more of a recommendation.
Okay, great.
So, thank you, Chair. My question from the last meeting and meeting previous is that, I was hoping to see a mapping of the property showing us the acreages on it, with the setbacks away from, water courses and setbacks away from the hydro lines. So then we would know what acreages are available. The information provided to us is information in regards to the zoning, what's permitted, and all that kind of stuff. The information we received from Charlie Mignol back on September the 10th, we were given a list of manufacturers with the amount of acreages they would be looking for in order to set up business. And I thought that if we had the map, we could say, for example, I didn't bring the list with me, but there was woodworking businesses that needed 20 acres, 30 acres. There was other businesses that needed so many acres. If we could have had that map, if we could have probably tried to plot an idea, could we, or how many of these businesses could we put on that property? I think that was gonna be, my opinion, a starting spot to go forward. And the information in front of us is very valuable. But it's hard for just community to say,
So that was one of my first questions. Is, like, we've asked for that, I think this is the third time.
Mhm.
So, what, like, either I'm missing something, because I thought it was agreed that we could get a map. Because you're right, my very first time, and when we asked for it, I think, when Dave Mallory asked for it, and I said, well, we don't really need it, but then it came up, well, there's hydro right of ways, and there's a watershed, and I'm kind of, oh, of course, like, we gotta know, like, how much land, like, and the total acreages, and then complicating that was the recommendation that we thought, oh, we need a buffer zone, if we put class 3 industrial in one area, we need setbacks, and then we would have a buffer zone where we could put lighter commercial in that buffer zone. Well, it's pretty hard to do that planning on what's available and what could be available and make a recommendation if we don't know how many acres we have. So we know the total acres. We don't know
what's usable.
what's usable. And we don't know where they are. And we don't know, we know the residential now. So we know there has to be setbacks from residential. But I don't know if, like, I think I could use this to kind of go through and say, we need setbacks from, I guess if there was somewhere there's gotta be a bylaw and setbacks from
There is.
hydro
There
and
is.
from water and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So that's, I guess, although that's very detailed, and we know what kind of businesses that Charlie's recommending are out there, and we can start putting them in. Oh, we could put one of these here and one of these here, we could put one big one here, but without the real map, it's gonna be a challenge. So
So-
we would add that request again to staff to see if we could get a map with,
Restrictions, those restrictions.
yeah,
or
with like usable acres.
encumbrances?
And
Yeah.
yeah, thank you, that's a good
Yeah.
encumbrances, or is that the right word?
Through you, Chair, without mentioning any names, because we are in open, and without throwing any of my coworkers under the bus. I understand what you've asked for. I have asked for that. Apparently that map does not exist, so they'll have to create it.
Oh,
They
Okay.
said what they used was the map that was in my report. And that didn't have that on it. I think they used it and was pointing and saying that generally speaking, this could be. But I certainly can take the request back again. This is what they provided. But they insist that they did not have a map prepared when they were hearing.
yeah, through you, Chair, that's my misunderstanding. Okay, I was, for some reason, I thought there was a map, but that's okay. Do we really, then that's a different question we're asking for. Now, we'll just, instead of a map that's done, now we're asking somebody to do a map. I don't know that I'm in favor of that now.
That's sort of critical.
Well, that map is needed though, right? Like,
They're gonna need to do it anyways, I
Yeah.
guess that's a question.
I can ask if they have a zoning map. I know that, I'm not planning department, but I know
No.
zoning maps exist.
Yeah.
If there is one that's already there that they could use to mark up for the benefit of the committee. the way that-
Most of that is really rural, sorry, but is, so it's the water that's on, kind of on the east side. And I don't know if there's hydro running through, there is?
There is.
Oh, wow. Right, okay,
Yeah.
so we would know, somebody's gotta know where that is. Yeah,
And I suggest that we direct staff. We do need a map. We need to know, and I've been preaching this, we need to know the usable acreage on the property. We all know there's setbacks with hydro and setbacks from water course. Because that is a starting block, as I said,
Yep.
in order for us to make a decision of moving forward. Charlie Mignon did an excellent job for us of providing us types of businesses, manufacturing businesses that could be usable and suitable for the property. But what is usable land on the property? As Bob said, there's buffer zones we have to have between each. So we need that. And I think like September's meeting with Charlie Mignon was, I thought was excellent. It was our first bang. We finally got some answers of what is coming down the pipe, what kind of manufacturing is out there, who's looking for land. We have the land. Now we need to know, what can we use it with?
Thank you, Sharon. Second day, so I'm not quite sure where where this lands. Do we have a GIS mapping system here in the township, or is it a county?
We use the county.
To use the county's mapping system.
Yeah.
So when I think back to my experience in the city, the zoning GIS system would have set the setbacks from any of the water courses and probably also from the hydro hydros. And so the county's mapping should be able to give you some sense of at least where those setbacks are and what they look like.
Mhm.
You might not get the setbacks from the residential, but that's something that you could probably estimate using mapping.
so would we ask Laura to ask the counties for that?
Good question.
We have staff that has access to the GIS.
Oh,
okay.
Here on site.
Okay, great.
So, yes, you can ask me for the question,
thank
but
you.
I'm not gonna go directly to the counties either.
No,
so-
no, that's even better.
You're
Yeah.
fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then further to that, is there, some of the, buffer zone setbacks vary based on the type of industrial? Is that the case with water and hydro? Like, I don't think it is with hydro, but it might be on water for outside storage of certain industrial things. I don't know, but we should find that out because,
Those setbacks would be established by the Conservation Authority, and
right,
the setbacks to hydro would be established by hydro. And they probably aren't going to be based on the use of the land, it's going to be just, there is a setback. Now, there might be some that are,
yeah, I just noticed with some of the ones with the provincial guidelines for class 3 were larger. And then I did notice in all the amendments, there were specific ones that were altered for certain properties.
Yes.
So anyway, but I guess to your point, we just need we need something to start with, and if we find out we're throwing a bit of a curve later, we can work with it, but you know, it'd be nice to be able to say this square here and looking at the big square and what would be, I'm looking at the southeastern corner, it looks like a big rectangle there, and that if that is intercepted by the water, then it changes everything, or the hydro changes everything.
Mhm.
And then lastly to is the purple, the darker purple on that map is residential, but the residences along North Augusta Road to the southwest aren't in purple, but some of those are residential
Yeah.
lots, aren't they?
city.
Brock. Thank you.
I don't work there anymore.
No, that's been said to us, so that's not in the township, but is that still, are we,
There'd be setback distances.
there'll be setback distances even when it crosses over a municipal boundary? Okay, so we should know, so that,
To be
How much
still
does that-
colored in terms of.
we need to
us being
color
able to
those in,
visualize
as
what's
you know,
useful.
for our purposes, there's still residential for, because it's gonna eat into the property on the southwest side.
Even at the lowest classification, there's at least a 20-meter setback required for residential, with any
For industrial,
industrial.
Class 1.
Or commercial.
correct.
Yeah. Through your chair, sorry, again, you got a big site, and one of the things that you may consider or need to consider is you need to put roadways in, so you will lose some acreage based on road allowances, based on any
Yep.
development that you may put in. You could have one large user who just wants to take up
Yeah.
all of it, which is, I guess, ideal. But you may start to lose some of it depending on what uses go in and what the sizes are.
So we did have, thank you, we did have that kind of preliminary, so we're gonna have to allow for other uses to service it. Yeah, roads being a major one.
Okay. Okay, other questions that us?
Well, I have some other discussion
Yeah,
items.
you've raised some.
Yeah,
Okay, Bob had sent out a list of questions that we should consider. So the archaeological study update, did that go to council, look at the next?
Yes,
Okay, and it's been funded or?
it was approved by council to move forward.
Yes.
I think
Phase
so.
two.
Phase two?
Yeah.
excellent. That was our recommendation.
Correct.
Just perfect, okay.
Correct. It was taking place between now and December. I have no idea. I haven't heard back. So, but we passed and moved forward.
Okay, is there anything we have to consider other than cross our fingers?
I don't think there's anything we can do until.
When we get the report back, right?
Okay, good, thank you.
Then there was communications update with the city of Brockville that you were asking questions about, so ability so the city of Rockville's ability to provide services. That was the first one.
I think, well, that was just a comment. The mayor filled us in at the, after Charlie spoke, the most part, but we want to make sure like this whole plan is contingent on a partnership with the city of Rockville. And it was more about do we have a further update? Do we need an update? No, was that no?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, was it do we, as far as, we need to know that they're on board and continue to keep that
Look,
one.
that's one of the crutches that we've got to make this work at a reasonable cost.
Well, that was the second part.
The only comment I'll make is that, yes, the city of Rockville is well aware of that property and what we're trying to do with the property. They do know that we need services over there. And the discussion about, running the services, across, I think it was Laurier, extended Laurier crossed over to North Augusta Road, I think it was. But they're well aware of it, and also with our Rouse Corners, property project, they're well aware of that as well. Municipality just did the, application itself of that, project. So I will say that yes, the city is well aware of what we're trying to do to increase, industrial, commercial businesses and or residential mix, whatever, on that property.
I guess my flag is to continue keeping those communications open to make sure any recommendation we're gonna have is contingent upon ongoing discussions and ultimate approval from the city of Rockville.
Yeah, and exactly that, even when Charlie Mignot spoke to us, these businesses that, he's referring to, they're all wanting services, no matter what. So in order for us to move forward with that property, we have to have the services. And the city has the services in order for us to provide. So that's all I can say at this point, is that the dialogue is still open.
Talking to comment?
Sure.
Certainly there is capacity there. I think some of when we were talking about the Rouse Corners and other developments on Broome Estate, there was a little bit of concern around capacity. So yes, you have, Township has capacity at the water station, but are the pipes in the ground actually big enough through the industrial park to be able to take any additional capacity? The indication is yes. It obviously depends on what type of business, how much volume is coming from it. So the city will be supportive, like they want to see this development happen, but some of it's contingent on what is going to go there. So it's a little bit, the chicken or the egg, which comes first. So understanding what developable area you have, understanding what developments you might want to take there will impact on the amount of servicing that gets put into that site. So there has to be a little bit of sort of an understanding. It's not going to be cheap. You're going to go through some bedrock to get services from Laurier across to this site. So it's not going to be a cheap option.
And wasn't there some, with the mayor's comments at the last meeting, there was some comments that possibly discussing not going across Laurier now, but going straight down North Augusta, that it might be easier, even though Rouse Corners are always going up and around, depending again on use. And I guess, so I think we can park that though, like, as long as we know the communication lines are gonna stay open, that they're, they're favorable, thank you, and that there's gonna be a price tag. It'd be nice to know a little bit what that is, but, and then I guess the last part of that is we're kind of gone, and I think this group agrees that we're heavily in favor or leaning towards industrial versus residential. And wasn't one of the concerns with residential because of
Volumes.
volumes? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So it went, and that I think was my my last comment was, are we gonna have to address why we're not recommending residential in our recommendation? Or do we,
It will be one of the things we have to provide
Yeah.
comment. on.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, that, we should remember that,
Yeah.
that point, that what services are,
Mhm.
you know, for residential are gonna be a challenge anyways. And it might be a challenge depending on what kind of industrial we put in there.
Right.
But
There are some businesses for sure, they're huge water users
yes,
and power too. Okay, so, from, Michael, Sardi, sorry, his information itself, have we made the decision that we're gonna sort of focus on the industrial, commercial, for this? Or is that, we're not even going to consider residential, what we're doing here?
I would suggest we consider residential and mixed it.
yeah, I think, in my opinion, we've moved past it.
Okay.
And that was my comment, and I think of my notes, I might be a little, but I'm assuming we've moved past it.
Yeah, I
Okay.
thought that was the case too.
But I don't really know, like I read his note on rezoning of in general industrial versus business park industrial. And I was leaning towards general industrial and then you could fall back to business park if you needed to, but I don't know, that was just like undereducated.
I guess where I'm struggling a little bit is just looking at the sort of the economics of going one or the other. Where does the advantage to the township, to the municipality? Looking at tax base, at sale of property is, again, looking at the future for the township. What's best?
If I recall, the mayor's comment at last meeting was that, commercial industrial is, the higher tax base versus residential.
Right. But then he has within that, the, Michael Zerny has outlined, you know, the two different industrial ones. He's given the three provincial classes, but then he's given general industrial, well, he's given three, general industrial, business park industrial, or rural industrial. And that's in our notes, and many of the provisions are similar. But it appeared to me, layperson, looking at this, that the list for the general industrial was broader. And that we call it restrictive, but well, the rural industrial would seem to be a little restrictive, but the business park industrial, it's a long list, but I guess if I was to ask a question, does the general industrial include all the permitted uses that's here plus the business park? Or are they distinct? Because it's almost like you got industrial zones and you got the general industrial with a permitted list. And then you've got business park industrial with permitted uses. And it appears that most of these services under the business park industrial would fit into one of the categories under the general industrial, but I don't want to make that as assumption.
Through chair. Study your zoning bylaw intently, but typically you're creating the uses within each zone and they're defined. And so if there are uses that fit within two zones, they will be listed in both those zones. So you can't assume that just because it's general industrial, that the business park industrial would be uses that would fit within that as well. So they are discrete.
Thank you. That appears to be that there's a lot of duplication between the two.
And one of the things to keep in mind is that you will own this land, so you can decide what uses you want to go in there. Like there are some like adult entertainment parlor. You don't want that going into your industrial use, so you would make sure that you're not gonna have those uses, you're not gonna be selling this. Uses.
Question?
I guess at some point we need to know which one we're going to recommend, or do we just give it back to the planner and say, you decide whether you, what zoning you're doing?
I think we need to look at, go forward probably with commercial, industrial, manufacturing, and do a comparison almost across them, I think. Maybe it is more work, but when you look at what comes back to the municipality and certain things, we've got to be able to compare that. For our council to be able to make a decision that is best for it.
So I'm looking at the comment, and I've just contradict myself a little bit in what I just said, in that you will sell the property and there will be uses that you may not necessarily want, but once you sell it, if it's a permitted use within that zone, they could, the next owner could convert it to that use. So you might want to, in your zoning application, and again, you will be the applicant, is specify that there are some things that you don't want. And so you could be very specific about what type of uses you want to have in this. And so you could exclude things that you don't want.
Okay. I'm going to withdraw this question because they are identical. This, that is included in that one. Everyone is there. There's no, the industrial, the general industrial, every single one of the ones there is listed within the business park,
But not the other way around.
not the other way
So
around.
the business park one is the one that gives more leeway,
It has more permitted uses.
including industrial facility in place of assembly.
Yeah,
Which aren't-
so I don't, and the setbacks and the frontage minimums are identical on everything. So I really don't know.
Can I ask for clarification, Chair? You made a comment about asking planning for the commercial industrial versus, but you didn't specify which. Were you talking about the general?
Yes.
Just want to make sure my notes are accurate.
Well,
So this, okay, so this doesn't affect the setbacks or the buffer zones. It doesn't look like the bylaw and the definition of industrial zones. Like if we zone the whole thing as a business park, what I'm looking at, what I believe now. So you zone it as business park industrial. And these are all the uses, and these are all the minimum lot sizes and all that. These are all established, and we zone it as that. And then we can work with that to, in the map, to kind of say, here's what will fit. It doesn't look like there's any, but when the planners were here, they said that the buffer zones are different depending on usage. And that's what's included in the provincial guidelines, not the township's bylaws.
but provincial guidelines will be superimposed before we start considering.
I'm sorry to interject your chit
No,
chat.
that's good.
If you look at the general industrial, under the increased yard requirements, they're in the energy zone that abuts a residential zone. Interior side yards shall be increased by 7.5 meters. If you look at the special exception zones under the business park, the land zone shall be maintained a 50-meter wide buffer between abutting residential lots and the entrances. So there are some differences now.
Oh, you're right.
The 7.5 meters is an increase over what's there, and I'm not sure what the irregular side yard is. So
It's
there
10
there
meters.
might be, some minor variations based on the type of use of each.
Just to clarify, Rob, so you're saying this increased yard requirement on the 7.1 general industrial. That number 3 applies to all, if it abuts a residential zone, has to go from a side yard or rear yard, it has to be increased from either 10 meters to 17.5 or 15 meters to 22.5 is what I get. Okay, that's,
Whereas under the business park, special
Yes.
exception zones, so there is a special exception zone that is looking to maintain a 50-meter buffer between five residential lots. Now that could be specific to, that looks like it's specific to one specific property, but it's been imposed there, so they might try and impose it in this.
That would be, when we
Yeah,
make a
that's just
decision
kind
of what we're looking for here, there would have to be a study done. Anyway, just how it fits in there.
okay. Okay,
Don't have anything else to add. I mean, I think that those lists before and the business park industrial zone, it just seemed the most limited to me that aligns with what we had been talking about. I think those restrictions in terms of the special exception zones and things are workable with the size of the property. It comes back to that map drawing too.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like having that map so we could color those in kind of thing and see what that would actually impact would be helpful.
Wish we had. The Ministry of Agriculture has a product called Egg Maps that I was the manager that got it in place for the state. And so we could actually draw in all the setbacks, everything, and they created their own map for a piece of property. But certainly all the data layers were there at the same time too, but with soil type, water, agro, wells, we're all part of that. So you'd be off right on that one application. It would be nice to have.
yes.
Okay, so where are we?
Well, I have a recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah, Rebecca's recommendation format was excellent. And I know that we kind of got forward and pulled back, but I'm wondering if we can submit that format as our working paper to move us forward. Like it's a 4-page document that we need to share with everybody. I understand that, but notwithstanding that, that's why I'm doing it in an open forum, is that it was a great start. You know, she did a really good job. And I think that now with some further discussion that we've had, we can add things to it. But we can start proceeding with, we're gonna recommend an industrial site. We can then have the document that we can edit rather than create.
Yeah, and add some of those provisions. Right?
Yes,
Like-
and knowing that we need the map as an appendice and we need setbacks, and then, I think Rob has clarified that one for me, like that's good enough to start with. If we,
Or
Through you, Chair, if that's the route you would want to go, I would suggest asking member Rebecca to recirculate the document, but to circulate it.
I would prefer someone else to do that because I got my hand slapped pretty hard. So
oh,
perhaps,
But I was still,
perhaps we
what
can
I was
start
going
over.
to say is circulated to all members. That was what the issue was.
okay, so let me rephrase this. I would like to, through you, Chair, to submit a framework to Laura to generate, to use it as a template to generate, to share with all members. And whether you use this one or you retype it, doesn't matter to me, but this is,
So direct me to be the one to circulate it to all members. So
Yeah.
that all members.
yeah, okay? And is that all right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then if I can email this to you
Oh,
or,
it's in my inbox.
Yeah,
I
okay.
didn't delete it as Rebecca
Okay,
asked.
great. yeah, and then
It's
you can
buried.
share it out as a template
Okay.
that we're going to use as a working document to add some stuff. And if, I guess, if we're being efficient, if there's some of the notes that Laura's already taken, that she could add them in where she sees fit, then we can all review.
Yeah, there's certainly, even from this meeting today, a bunch more information that could inform that previous document.
Mhm.
And flesh it out a bit more. I think we're pretty close. We're
Yeah.
missing some of the key things, because I think that map that we're talking about, we need to go along with that report too,
Oh, for
so
sure.
we can demonstrate,
And I think that if do we have the notes from Charlie of what his list, because we need that as well.
The list wasn't included in the minutes, but I made the list and I have a copy of my hand scratching, so I can add that. Forward those on to Laura.
Because that was my other note, was the city of Brockville. I was under the impression that they had done a study fairly recently about what type of businesses were available and to try for I believe it was in conjunction with no, I think it was for when they were talking about the Leclerc property. That there was some investigation into what properties might go, what type of businesses might go there. And okay, I thought that was at the corner. No, okay, so then that doesn't matter. It's a moot point.
Yeah.
So either we commission a study, which we're not gonna do. We just take Charlie's recommendations and go with that. And so we do need, our best recollection or a phone call with Charlie to help us. Or maybe we just send it to him and say, hey, we're quoting you. Do you want to make sure it's accurate?
I would suggest checking with Charlie, because sometimes he's working with
Yeah.
businesses that want to remain confidential, so he can generalize.
Yeah,
a
he was
little
only
bit
he spoke to us in public
further in
meeting
public meetings.
And it was
and
generalized.
he
Yeah,
generalized them.
That's good.
Yeah,
I know he deals with a lot of
yeah, absolutely.
confidential information, so you want to make sure that he's okay
Absolutely.
with what.
Thank you.
You provide your list to
I can provide the list to you, but also gonna recommend or suggest that we just go on to the virtual meeting of that night. And
Fair enough.
Take it
I
from
can
there.
rewatch
Well,
it and make the list.
I'll-
and
I'll-
confirm.
go through my paperwork and all.
Yeah, and we just want to have a list of here's the general type of business that are available, I know there was a lot of food,
Yes.
and a bunch of different,
Yeah.
so we put those in there. You just kind of, this is the research and the expert is Charlie, and when it gets time to put it up for sale, then, we certainly have that asset to rely on.
Just question for consideration here, as well as keeping people informed. Rob and our mayor, whether we should bring them into the fold a bit just to keep them knowledgeable of where we're at and what's happening. And not that they're gonna take it on to council, but it's so they're informed of what our thoughts are. where
And
we're-
Dave,
And Dave, too.
absolutely.
Dave. Now what do you mean?
Dave, no.
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely. I think we don't want to get a wrist slap again.
Rob,
I-
you see a problem?
No, not at all, and coming into this relatively late on in terms of some of the work that you've done, but it's been my background, so I really like to be involved, and it's sort of what I see as one of the key projects for the township and for myself, so I would like to be involved in that.
we would appreciate it. But here's what happened, a little bit of background. So this committee is like the three of us, Earl has been on chairing the committee for some time. And Rebecca, myself and Dave are new. And after a year, I guess, we kind of said, we need more. We're here to just do the business of the year. And it was kind of one of those, be careful what you ask for. And so city council came immediately back and said, here. And they said, why don't you give us a layperson's view? And so we said, sure, we can do that. So they gave us this project. And knowing full well, we're not planners, we're not engineers, we're not, economic development officers. So that we certainly, you know, we've kind of been tossing this around and discussing it in the group and pulling in resources. We had the planners come to see us. We had Charlie come to see us. We had Ann Weir come to talk. So we're just trying to, you know, vet this a little bit and help make city councils. But yeah, absolutely. This is what you've done for many years. So we're going down the wrong path. So let's see. Or if there's something we should be
We
doing.
are very excited to hear about you joining. So we can
Yeah.
leverage that experience.
And I was gonna say, anything I've heard tonight hasn't made me go, oh my gosh, what are they doing? So
Yeah.
you're on the good track.
Yeah, well, and I think the fact that the mayor has been very active in Rose Corners and participating with Brockville to try and make that project go forward. It's encouraged him about this project and yeah, and
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity.
it's good for Elizabethtown, it's good for Brockville, it's good, you know. Yeah, it's the right thing to do.
Okay, then we'll start looking at next steps then. We're asking for the information, so anything else that needs to be considered, right? Anyway,
Not I know. Do you see anything, Rob, through you, Jared, or Rob?
Future, not that I can think of, but, I'll review some of the previous material that you've had. Sort of get back to you if I think there's something that I think should be considered.
I just have one request, and that's about information coming back to us specifically on the archaeologists. But in general, if there's something that we're asking for that we aren't gonna get, just say so. Or if there's something that, you know, if there's an update on, it would be great that, you know, like, especially on this archaeological one, if the study comes back and it's not good news, we'd like to know.
We'll be told right away.
Perfect.
Rob, I'm not sure if you would know this or not, but other approvals that we need to have on the land base itself. I'm going through it with another organization I'm with. We're having to have an indigenous groups approve the land use or a transfer of land. And it has taken 2 years to even get any kind of response back from all of them. Whether we're in date or any of that might be a factor here.
I've never had to deal with it when I've been in Brockville, but your archaeological assessment might point to something that might mean you need to engage with some indigenous groups to just clarify if there has been in the land base that may have had.
Yeah, we don't know that.
I'm working with is the archaeological and environmental has been done and no problems or issues. So it's the indigenous, a separate piece that we'll run into an issue with.
Have you done a hydrogeological study?
It's not required, obviously.
Okay, that's good.
It's actually class 4 farmland. We're all under the year study that was just finished.
Not within 800 meters of the 401. So part of
No.
it.
So she's west of Athens. Community past.
I didn't see that when I drove by. I found that interesting.
Okay. So is that it for today?
You have a few more items on your agenda, so.
So. Other business then? Anything else at all?
I don't have anything.
Any informational items for today?
I have nothing to offer to any of the committee members.
And were there any questions that came in?
Nope.
Okay, well, all for an adjournment. Rebecca? All in favor? Carried.
Is December 10th, which is our normal meeting date, is that good with everybody?
Yes.